Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast. Today we're tackling a company many of you asked about, advanced micro devices. And the core question, based on the material you shared, is pretty direct. Is AMD, a good buy right now?
Exactly. We've gathered a whole stack of research, recent catalysts, deep financial dives, the technical charts, basically everything to get you up to speed quickly. Our goal here is to synthesize all that information and really pin down the main investment case presented in these sources.
Absolutely. Think of it as a shortcut to getting informed on AMD. And hey, while we're digging in, if there's another company you want us to look at, just drop a comment below. Seriously, let us know. And if you find this analysis useful, hitting that like and subscribe button, it really helps us keep doing this.
Okay, let's dive into the sources then.
Right. We really have to start with that huge surge, don't we? The stock jumped, 50% between July and October 2025? That's significant. What were the sources saying drove that massive run?
Yeah, it was a big one. And the sources, they're pretty much unanimous on this. It boils down to AMD really accelerating its AI ambitions and, crucially, landing some major strategic partnerships. These moves seem to be cementing their position in the AI compute market. It wasn't just market hype, it was specific news.
Okay, so unpack those partnerships for us. What were the sort of standout moments?
Well, the really eye-popping one came in October 2025. The partnership announced with OpenAI. They're talking about deploying 6 gigawatts of AMD GPUs. That's a massive scale.
6 gigawatts. Help us visualize that. How big a deal is that signal, really?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, we're not talking a small pilot program here. 6 gigawatts is like utility scale power. It points to a multi-billion-dollar commitment. And maybe more importantly, it shows a leader like OpenAI is betting big on AMD's hardware for their future build-out. It's a massive vote of confidence.
And it wasn't just the giants like OpenAI, right? The sources also mentioned enterprise momentum.
Correct. Around the same time, September, October, we saw them deepening their collaboration with Cohere. Now, this is interesting because Cohere is really focused on enabling enterprise AI and also sovereign AI deployments.
Sovereign AI deployments. What exactly does that mean for listeners?
Good question. It refers to countries or big corporations building their own AI infrastructure, often for security reasons or national advantage. They don't want to rely solely on the U.S. tech giants. So landing these deals suggests AMD is building revenue streams beyond just the big cloud players. Diversification.
Right, makes sense. And all this excitement, it seems, was kind of underpinned by their financial results earlier in the summer.
Exactly. Back in August, their Q2 results and what management said about the data center and AI outlook that really fueled an immediate stock reaction. Those results were basically the first concrete sign that the AI strategy wasn't just talk, it was actually translating into potential orders. That likely paved the way for those big partnership announcements.
Okay, so the recent momentum is clear, but, investing isn't just about hype. Let's peel back the curtain on the financials. What do the sources actually say about the company's underlying health? Is this valuation built on solid ground?
Well, looking at the numbers, the foundation seems surprisingly robust. It's just AMD might actually be earning this valuation. Take revenue. Trailing 12 months, TTM, revenues around $29.6 billion. And importantly, looking back, full year 2024 revenue was $25.79 billion. That's up nearly 14% from 2023, showing pretty strong demand, especially from data centers and AI.
Okay, top line growth is there. But what about profitability? Gross margin is often the big tell for chip designers, right?
Yeah, absolutely is. It shows their pricing power. And here, the story's good too. Net income for the TTM hit $2.83 billion. That's a jump of 92% year over year. Huge. But to the really crucial bit, gross margin. It improved to 54% in the latest quarter. That's up from 51% in the year before.
54%. That's pretty healthy. For our listeners, that suggests they're selling premium stuff like those Instinct AI chips and EPYC server chips, not just basic components.
Exactly. Expanding margins while growing revenue aggressively, that's the classic sign of a tech leader with a strong position. If they can keep that up, it provides enormous profit leverage.
So revenue's up, margins healthy, but growth like this often means taking on debt. Are they over-leveraged trying to chase this AI boom?
Actually, no. And this might be one of the strongest points in the bull case, according to the sources. They noted a really healthy cash position, about $6.9 billion against total debt of just $2.4 billion. This was as of June 30th, 2025.
Wow, so what's that, like $4.5 billion in net cash?
Pretty much, yeah. Plus, they generated about $3.15 billion in free cash flow over the trailing 12 months. This low leverage gives them immense flexibility. In a cash-hungry race like AI, having that war chest means they can invest heavily in R&D, make strategic moves, maybe acquisitions, without needing outside funding. It lowers the execution risk quite a bit.
That strong financial picture must tie into their competitive advantages, their moat, as they say. We hear about their chip designs and partnerships. What exactly makes their position durable right now, according to these analysts?
Yeah, the analysts point to sort of three main pillars for their moat. First is the differentiated chip architecture itself. Second, those crucial manufacturing partnerships, especially with TSMC, giving them access to cutting-edge production. But the third one, maybe less flashy but really important, is the strength of their existing EPYC server chips and the newer Instinct GPUs in the data center space, that whole ecosystem.
Explain that a bit more. Why is the success of EPYC server CPUs so key for their AI chip growth?
Right, so EPYC has been a huge success story for them in servers. Many big cloud providers and enterprises already use EPYC. The advantage is integration. When these customers want to add AI acceleration, plugging AMD's Instinct GPUs into systems already running EPYC CPUs is often way easier and cheaper than ripping everything out to put in a competitor's full stack. That integration advantage, that stickiness, is what the sources see as a really durable competitive edge.
Interesting. And beyond the numbers, we also saw some confidence signals, right? Insider buying after Q2 and big inflows from institutional investors in Q3.
Yes, that institutional buying, the smart money coming in, is mentioned repeatedly as a major positive signal. Management and big funds aligning.
But let's pause there. Isn't huge institutional buying sometimes a sign that a trade is getting crowded, maybe even nearing a peak? Did the sources express any caution about that?
That's a fair point, and yes, the sources do acknowledge the risk of a crowded trade. The valuation does bake in a lot of future growth already. But they seem to mitigate this, noting that the inflows were apparently from long-term growth funds. The suggestion is these funds believe in the decade-long AI shift, not just a quick pop. So, for now, the conviction seems to outweigh the crowded concern in the analysis we reviewed.
Okay, so the past looks strong, the present financials are solid, but the buy now idea really hinges on what happens next, the future. What specific dates should listeners circle on their calendars over the next, say, 3 months?
Right, this is where it gets really interesting. The next few weeks look critical, potentially packed with market-moving events. Two big corporate ones stand out. First, the highly anticipated Financial Analyst Day on November 11th, 2025.
That's coming up fast. What are investors really listening for on Analyst Day? What needs to be delivered?
This is AMD's chance to provide real clarity. Investors want updates on product roadmaps, definitely. They want multi-year financial targets, especially around AI revenue.
Yeah.
And crucially, specifics on their AI hardware strategies like who's buying what and on what timeline, more concrete details.
And the other big one is earnings, obviously.
Yes, Q3 2025 earnings are imminent. The sources mentioned possible dates floating around November 4th or maybe December 20th. We'll see. The market will be laser-focused on two things there. Continued demand signals for AI chips, and secondarily, how the gaming segment is holding up, since that's still a big chunk of revenue. Any positive guidance on future AI chip sales will be key.
And beyond AMD's own news, you mentioned institutional moves themselves can create noise for individual investors.
Definitely. You can see volatility amplified later in the cycle by things like ETF rebalancing around December 31st. That can mechanically push the price around. And then the public release of 13F filings around January 15th, 2026. That's when we'll see clearly which major funds actually bought in Q3, confirming or maybe contradicting those earlier rumors about big inflows.
Okay, now let's get to the really juicy stuff, the rumors, the speculative buzz. It feels like the current price is already pricing in some wins that aren't official yet. What are the big whispered about wins the market seems to be betting on?
Right, the market chatter is very, very focused on two main rumors right now. These seem to be adding fuel to that premium valuation. First, and probably most important, is strong speculation, though, let me stress, unconfirmed that AMD could land a huge next-gen AI GPU deal from a top 3 hyperscaler, one of the giant cloud providers.
So we're talking about a deal that would directly challenge NVIDIA's dominance in those massive custom cloud deployments. That would be enormous.
Oh, it would be a complete game changer for perception. It would guarantee massive volume and prove the Instinct platform can compete head-to-head at the absolute highest level of AI infrastructure. If that rumor gets confirmed, it provides the narrative justification for that 50% surge we saw.
Okay, what's the other big rumor making the rounds?
The second one is more strategic. It's unsubstantiated chatter that maybe a sovereign wealth fund or perhaps a major international tech company might be looking at taking a significant strategic stake in AMD or forming a major partnership. This speaks less to immediate sales and more to how valuable AMD's AI technology is seen on the global stage, almost geopolitically.
Okay, so we've got strong fundamentals, a big cash cushion, critical upcoming events, and these potentially huge rumors swirling. How does this translate to the stock chart right now? The technical picture must reflect this optimism.
It really does. The technicals seem to align pretty well with the fundamental story. The stock's currently trading around $234.56, and critically, it's well above both its 50-day and 200-day moving averages. That confirms a clear, solid upward trend.
But is it getting overheated? Are momentum indicators flashing warning signs suggesting maybe a pullback is needed?
Not quite yet, it seems. Indicators like the RSI, the Relative Strength Index, are definitely bullish, but they're in that moderate 62 to 69 range. That's important because it suggests the stock isn't, wildly overbought just yet. There could still be room to run higher before needing a major correction, technically speaking.
And if these catalysts do hit positively, what kind of near-term trading range are analysts projecting?
The sources suggest a realistic range over the next 3 months could be somewhere between, say, $210. On the downside, that level might act as support, and potentially up to $260 on the upside. If, and that's a key if, the Analyst Day news and Q3 earnings meet or beat those high expectations. The recent consolidation around $224 suggests the market's kind of digesting the big run, waiting for the next signal.
Right, but we need to balance all this optimism. Before anyone gets too carried away, what are the key risks the sources highlighted? What could potentially derail this bullish story?
Always important. Yes, the primary risk mentioned is execution risk. This AI chip space is incredibly competitive, moving super fast. Even with AMD's cash, there's always the risk of product delays, or maybe their next chip doesn't quite hit the performance targets needed. It's a constant race.
And risks beyond just AMD itself, industry-wide stuff.
Absolutely. Sector risk is a big one for semiconductors. The whole industry is notoriously cyclical. It gets hit hard in economic downturns. Plus, it's very exposed to regulatory changes and geopolitical supply chain issues, things like trade tensions, access to materials, manufacturing locations. Those can impact costs and market access significantly.
But the sources offered some counter-arguments to those risks, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They tended to mitigate those broader risks by highlighting AMD management's strong execution track record, and also their efforts in diversifying their supply chain, not being overly reliant on one single manufacturer or region. The view seems to be these strategies make those big external risks more manageable for AMD, at least for now. So, pulling it all together, synthesizing everything we've looked at from these sources, they essentially give Advanced Micro Devices an overall bullish rating. Pretty high, actually 9 out of 10.
Wow, a 9 out of 10, that's very strong. What's the final summary argument for that high score?
It really comes down to a combination of factors. One, that accelerating revenue growth, especially with improving margins. Two, the really solid low-debt financial position, giving them flexibility. And three, that confirmed institutional buying, adding validation. All this is happening right before a series of potentially major near-term catalysts, especially that Analyst Day on November 11th and the Q3 earnings report.
So the conclusion from the sources seems to be that the stock looks attractive both for shorter-term plays, trying to capture gains from these upcoming events, and for longer-term investors betting on the big secular growth in AI where AMD is positioning itself as a leader.
Exactly, which leads to maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. We know that the current stock price seems heavily influenced by that big rumor, the potential top 3 hyperscaler win. So here's the question. What specific quantifiable detail does AMD absolutely need to reveal at that Analyst Day on November 11th to turn that rumor into concrete market confidence? Not just a vague partnership, but something solid. And maybe more importantly, if that key detail is missing or delayed or maybe disappointing, how much of that recent 50% gain are investors prepared to give back almost instantly? Just how much future certainty is baked into today's price? Something to think about.